Assalamu alaikum rahmatullah. Now today I'd like to answer a very important question, not only for Muslims but also for atheists, and that would be why does God not always answer our prayer? Now for some people that would be not always, and for some people that would be they think that God doesn't answer their prayer at all. First thing I'd like to say is that the main things that I can think of that people would take this as, if God doesn't answer the prayer, the first conclusion they're going to come to is any of these. Number one is that God doesn't hear them, which would be questioning God's power, as God does clearly say in the Quran and the Bible that He hears everything. Number two, God hears but doesn't do anything, that He hears them loud and clear but He doesn't actually care about them, so He doesn't react. Or number three, for some people it would be a leap of faith, including myself, but some people might come to the idea that God doesn't exist and that there's no God to hear them. Well, this would be the main one that people would conclude today, and that is why so many people are atheists who were once believers in religion, whatever they were born into. First thing I'd just like to say is people seem to take God for granted, heaven and hell all for granted, and that they don't seem to realise the fact that He didn't have to create us. He didn't have to create a heaven or a hell. He could simply have said in the Quran that when we die we could just die and go into the ground and that's the end of us. So when He says we go to heaven and hell, I don't think that's something you should question. It's something you shouldn't take for granted, and it's something you should thank Allah for. And thank Him that He didn't just say that He'll give us one life and we die and that's the end of us. I would just need to give a short example on the actual question of the video. Why does God not always answer our prayers? Let's just see this as a recipient. A recipient is something that receives something for something. An example being, let's take wine for example. Now as a Muslim you're not allowed to drink wine, as it is said that wine is the mother of all evil, but let's just take wine for this example. There are so many types of wine. There's good wine and there's bad wine. There's expensive wine and there's cheap wine. Usually the more expensive the wine is, the better country it's from and the better quality it is. When you get bad wine, then you're going to pour it into a simple glass, aren't you? But if you buy this really expensive, good quality French wine, for example, then you're going to have a special glass for it, a crystal glass maybe, to pour it into. Not only kind of to show off, but just to show the high quality of the wine compared to the low quality wine. You wouldn't just pour the good quality wine on the ground and feed that to the dog, because it's worth something and you don't just give it away like that too easily. The same thing is about prayer. You have to create yourself a good recipient for prayer. God doesn't get a certain blessing, like something is worth a lot, that, like say you wanted to be rich and you ask for it and you see that God doesn't exactly give you wealth straight away. Well, then you might question that God isn't giving you the wealth because, well, He mightn't exist. But one reason is because simply you're not a good prayer recipient. God won't get the special blessing of wealth and give it to you if you're not deserving it. If you don't pray enough to Him, if you don't fast enough for Him, and if you don't care about Him as much as He cares about you, well then that's not a good recipient. Because for everything everything must return to its source. That's a fact that everyone has to agree with. And that if you give a good blessing, then you're going to get a good blessing in return. If you do some good, then good luck's going to come your way. If you do some bad, then bad luck's going to come your way. It's the same with blessings. If you do something good, then God is going to bless you with, in some cases, what you pray for, unless you're not that deserving, then He won't give you that. For an example being, if you're really good and you pray and you do all of that, well then God might give you the blessing of wealth or whatever you want to pray for, whatever you're praying for, and see it as a good recipient, because He'll only give a good blessing to someone who deserves it, and some people who really, really desire it for good reasons. I hope this has answered your question. If there's any more questions you'd like me to give my view on or give an example for, please comment me. Assalamu alaikum rahmatullah.